So we've watched our video, we've learned about how we use description to further characters and story events, but there's also another way to help describe characters and to help the story progress, and that's by using dialogues. That's what this video is going to be about. When characters talk, what they reveal is information about themselves. Now, it could be things like their personalities or their desires or wants. Dialogue also moves the story forward by showing events rather than just telling about those events. So we have some examples over here that I have been thinking about from our story about the prince and the cow. So let's look at them. The next event I want to write about is Peter milking the cow and complaining that he wants to be a prince. When I planned this part of my fairy tale, I decided that the cow will suddenly speak and grant Peter his wish. Sorry about that, guys. So let me continue because I don't remember where I left off. That was Miss Kindness. She had a computer problem. So the next event I want to write about is Peter milking the cow and complaining that he wants to be a prince. When I planned this part of the fairy tale, I decided that the cow will suddenly speak and grant Peter his wish. I could write this scene without using dialogue, but that might be less interesting to the reader, especially because it's so surprising to see a cow speak. I mean, I want to know what this cow is saying, not just someone telling me that he's talking. This is also a good place to use dialogue, because dialogue lets me show what Peter is thinking and helps me develop his character. So I have these two ideas that I can do. One is just telling you the cow is talking, but one is really showing you what's going on with dialogue because that cow is speaking. So here's an example of me just telling you the cow is talking. As Peter milked the cow, he complained aloud about his chores and imagined the exciting life that the prince must have. Now, that's a pretty good sentence actually, but I can make it even better to advance the story by putting some dialogue in it. I bet a prince doesn't have to feed the animals and milk cows, Peter complained aloud to himself as he milked the cow. A prince gets to ride in the countryside and have lots of adventures. So notice here, I still see that Peter's complaining and he wants the life the prince has, but I'm actually seeing his words and it's giving me more information about him. It's including that dialogue. So I'm going to put this down for one of my paragraphs. I'm going to copy it. Let's see if it's, there we go. So I now have this dialogue. It's showing me the exact same things that it did with this telling, but it's giving me even more insight into Peter. It's telling me what he's complaining about, that he doesn't want to milk those cows and feed the animals. And it's telling me what he wants from the prince's exciting life. He's telling me that he wants to ride and have adventures. So now let's see what it would look like if we just say the cow is talking. So let's look at this one right here. The cow listened to Peter and asked him if he wanted to be a prince. Peter was surprised to hear the cow speak. The cow told Peter to listen and explained that he could get him his wish. Now again, we know the cow is going to be the helper, that the cow has these magical powers, but I really want to hear this cow speak. So what would a cow say if he's talking to someone? So then I rewrote it as this, and let's see if this one, if you guys like it better. The cow looked up at Peter and asked, "Do you want to be a prince?" Peter jumped back, alarmed to hear the cow speak. "I must be imagining things," Peter said as he rubbed his eyes. "Not at all," replied the cow. "Listen carefully. I can help you get your wish." So what we have right here is we have this cow talking. He's asking that question to Peter, "Do you want to be a prince?" And then we have Peter's response, that's surprise. So here I just said Peter was surprised, but here we know he's actually saying something. Am I imagining things? And I really like this phrase of he rubbed his eyes. He's like trying to see if he's waking up from a dream. So I think this one's a little bit better because I get to hear a cow talk. I get to see how they interact instead of me just saying Peter was surprised because a cow spoke. I get to see his reactions. So I'm going to put those in. And then I think this is starting to get a good idea for a story. So remember, when you're doing your writing, remember we want to put dialogue in there as well so we see how the characters act and how they can develop or advance the story. Now, here's a couple more that we can think about. What about this sentence? How can we change it to use dialogue? The cow said that the milk was magic. Well, we could change it to say the milk is magic, said the cow. So that's one thing we could also have the cow continue to do. What about this sentence? Peter asked what the cow would have. Man, let me start over on that one. Peter asked the cow what would happen if he drank the milk. Now, how can we rewrite that with dialogue? Well, we could just straight up say, what will happen if I drink the milk? Peter asked the cow. So there's those two that we could work on. So I like those two sentences. So I'm going to put them in my writing as well. Now, I do want to be careful sometimes, because sometimes as a teacher, I like to just put a whole bunch of dialogue in, and then I forget that we also need just those regular descriptions as well. So we do want to make sure that we don't get a little carried away. But also that can be part of our revision and editing when we do that next week. So I'm going to have you guys look at these ones now. We're going to add these two in here. Let me see if I did this correctly. Yeah, I did. So I'm going to delete these, or not delete them, and I'm going to put a space between these two. And I want you to think, which one do you like better? Peter asked the cow why it had not spoken before. Why didn't you speak before? Which one of those do you think is better to put in our story? Oh, and I forgot to fill this in. What will happen if I drink the milk? So which one do you like better for these? Well, I kind of think I like this part of why didn't you speak before? So I could put that in my question as well, in my dialogue. And then if he asked this question, we would need a response. So which of these is really showing us instead of just telling us that the cow responded? The cow told Peter that he did not have anything important to say until now. Or should we take this and put it as dialogue? We could put, I didn't have anything important to say until now. So these are some ideas that we could put in for our story. Now, I like this dialogue because it's telling me this cow is actually thinking. He's kind of an intelligent cow. So where could we put these two in our story? We could put it after what happens if I drank the milk, but where else could we put it? Well, I think it might be good putting it right here after this part. Peter rubbed his eyes and must be imagining things. I can put it right here. Why didn't you speak before? And then what would the cow reply? He would probably say, well, I didn't have anything to say important until now. So I can take this dialogue, and what's nice about this is with dialogue, I can expand those sentences. I can put it in here, and now I have a long sentence inside of what the cow's saying. He's saying, not at all. I didn't have anything important to say until now. So this is what I have for my dialogue. When you guys are writing, I want you to think, how can you now incorporate dialogue to show instead of just telling what's going on in your story?